Alright, welcome to the second module of the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course. This module is going to be way more practical and a lot of fun, and more than definitely than the first one, which was more about the theory and some of the essential concepts of how ZBrush works. But in this one, we're gonna actually open up ZBrush and start doing stuff. Before we actually get to do that and start sculpting and adding volumes and those sort of things, we have to set up a project, and that's what this video is all about. I'm going to show you how to import a reference image, how to set up the canvas and the document, save it, and get it all ready to go so that we can start in the next video with the creation of assets in ZBrush. So let's go ahead and switch to the main screen so that there's no distractions, and I have my Epic pen here already with me, just because I want to point out a few things before we get started. So as you notice here, I have the edit mode off, or it's not available to select it. And if you remember the bonus lesson from the previous module, it is because I have no tools or anything drawn into the canvas. You also see I have a gradient from black to gray, and the document has a little bit of a spacing on each side, not so much here at the top and bottom, and I have the Madcap Red Wax material selected. So this is kind of like a default version of ZBrush. I'm going to go ahead and hide this for the time being, and I'm going to show you how you can initialize ZBrush, or in other words, refresh the entire UI. So I'm going to click on Preference and click on this button that says Initialize ZBrush. I'm going to get this pop-up, and I'm going to press Yes. So ZBrush went ahead and basically initialized the whole setup, so we have a clean slate to start working with. Now, the thing that I was pointing at the beginning, I'm going to do it with a different color now. You'll see that now we don't have that gap that we had here before, right? And that's something that I want to show you how to change, or in case that happens to you, at least you know what is happening before we actually set up the document. We're also going to change the material to something that it's a little bit better to work on and understand the volumes a little bit better, which is the Madcap Gray. We'll do that as well. And I'm going to show you how to get rid of this gradient, just because I personally don't like it. I never use the gradient. So if you want to use it, you can just leave it as it is, but I'm going to show you how to change it and use just a simple plain color. I think this is a little bit distracting and it's not as nice to work with. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to clear all of this, and I'm going to start showing you how to change the document. Now, if we go to the document palette, which is something that you should be already familiar with because we've talked about it quite a bit, you'll see that we have this button that says New Document. Okay, so the New Document allows you to just simply create a new document based on the screen area. So if you have this W size, ZBrush is going to look at whatever distance is between this part of the UI, right, and this other part of the UI. Okay, and it's going to say, okay, the full screen is, X distance, and I'm going to use the height as well and create the entire document. That's what this W stands for. Width, width size. So based on the width of document. So because I had my palette closed, the one on the left hand side, the left tray closed, and the one on the right hand side open, this is the amount of space that ZBrush created the document with. So I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to do it again just to show you the practical example. If I close this one, you'll see now we have this gap, right? And now I can go ahead to Document, create New Document. I don't want to change or save any changes, and now you'll see the full width of this document. The same thing happens if I open both of these trays, go to Document, click New Document, and then close it. All right, you see, it's basically, that's what it is. It's a pretty simple thing, but I just want to show you how you can change it. If you don't want to do that or create a new document based on the screen size, you simply switch this off and create a new document. It's going to be based on these dimensions. I quite like the versatility and just very simple way to create documents like this. So I'm just going to make sure I have one of the trays closed, in this case the left one. Go to Document, New Document, and there we go. Now let's go ahead and change the gradient. Like I said, it's something that I don't particularly like. So we can go to Document, and here in this number 4th section, this one here. So when I say sections, I refer to these little bits. So the 4th one, right? So in this 4th one, we have the background color, BG as in background color, and that's this swatch in here. And we also have this range right? You can forget about this one. I mean, you can play around with this. I rarely touch these ones. Are just more advanced options to tweak the look and feel of it, but you can play around with that. I just want you to focus on the back swatch, which is the one to change the actual color, and the range. And the range is 0.5 at the moment, meaning that there is a gradient to black. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this out or hide it and go to the range, click on it, and make sure it is set to 0. So you'll see as I change that, the range in that gradient changes. Okay, so I'm going to leave it to 0, and let's go ahead and change the color of the background. I'm going to click on the back, hold it, and you'll see I can just go through the colors in the UI, and I usually just change it to a gray like this, just a darker gray. Remember, if you want to choose a specific color, you can select it from here first, and then go to document and click once, right? Or click and drag it to the selected document. Another way to do it will be from the color palette. You can actually select a very specific color using the RGB, so red, green, and blue. But for the most part, I just go for a dark gray. So something like this should be fine. Document, drag it, and I'm also gonna leave the main swatch to white. All right, so we have the document ready. We have no gradient. Let's go ahead and change the material. So I'm gonna click on the material palette, this one here, and click on Madcap Gray. So obviously I'm using the standard UI, and that's what you will get as soon as you initialize ZBrush. But now we're going to go ahead and load a custom UI. As I mentioned in the previous module, that's how we're going to work. I just wanted to show you how to set things up really quickly. So let's go ahead and click on Preference. I'm going to go to Config, and I'm going to click on Load UI. All right, so in the resources, we have this UI called the SeaSpheres M02L01 -2, meaning that this is for this lesson and the next one. Just want to show you how to set it up, and then we continue using it in the next one. So I'm going to click on that one, the SeaSpheres, click open, and this is our new UI. And now remember, because we set the document based on the width of the previous UI, we have a different document. So if you want to, you can just go ahead and click on document and make sure that the auto feed is enabled. I'm going to click new document, and now we have a document that fits this new UI. We're just going to repeat the color change by clicking on the back swatch, and that's it. And now we are ready to go. So we have the palette on the right hand side, and we have the new UI. So you might notice some difference between this UI and the one that we used in the last couple of videos from the last module. So I got rid of some of the navigation in 3D, because by now you should be pretty comfortable moving things around in the 3D space, as well as just changing this lock camera on the left hand side. But that's pretty much it. All right, so now that we have set this up and we have the right material, let's go ahead and click on the tool thumbnail, which right now it is set as a simple brush. I'm going to click on that. And that simple brush, I just want to mention a couple of things before we move forward. Let me clear this out. When you click on this tool palette or the tool thumbnail, you get this quick pick palette or quick pick window. So the quick pick, this area here, is just going to allow you to select something, the recent stuff that you have selected. Then you have this other one in here, which deals with 3D meshes, therefore the name. And here's where we can select the primitives. And I just want to mention this because this is the important one that we're going to talk about in the next lesson, which is the SeaSphere. I want to start you off with the weird stuff so that we can get comfortable with some of the really weird stuff that ZBrush uses, and then the rest will be more streamlined concepts, but we're going to get those right first. So just want to point you to this SeaSphere. And then we have this third area, which is for 2.5D brushes. Okay, and by default, when you initialize ZBrush and you don't have any tool, ZBrush is going to default to the simple brush, which is this one right here, and it's the simplest of the brushes or the tools. Remember, anything that you select here is just a tool essentially, and it is pretty nice, and you can do a lot of things in 2.5D, like an illustration with depth and all that, just using these brushes. Now you can use all of these brushes and play around with these ones. But of course, we're going to concentrate more in this second area, the 3D meshes. Okay, I'm going to hide this here, and just for the sake of demonstration, with this tool selected, I'm just going to show you what you can do. Right, so you can paint like this, or you can change it to this smudge. Allows you to smudge things like that. The eraser brush allows you to erase. So you'll see this is kind of like a Photoshop, but with Photoshop in steroids that have a lot of functionality. Layer brush, so it allows you to add volume that looks kind of like in layers. But all of this is just a fake 3D, or well, 2.5D is the right term, but it's faking the effect of 3D-ness by the pixel. The concept of the pixel. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that those are the difference. I'm going to hold Control and N, remember, to clear the canvas. So Control N is going to clear the canvas. And let's go ahead and select a mesh. Okay, so you can select absolutely anything that you want. It doesn't really matter. But I would just advise to select the C-sphere, since it's the one that we're going to use in the next video. But again, you can select anything. I'm just going to select C-sphere. So click on that one. And now this is our new tool. So a couple of things happen when you select the tool to be the C-sphere, right? You'll see we have a lot more palettes, or at least different sub palettes, than if we select the simple brush. The simple brush has nothing because it is 2.5D. I'm going to select the C-sphere, and here we have some palettes for it. All right, so I'm going to click and drag. And that's basically dragging the tool into the canvas. So because now we have something in the canvas or in the document, this edit mode is available, but it's still off. Okay, so I'm going to click edit, and now we are in 3D. All right, perfect. So if you remember, we are now in 3D because this edit mode is active, and we can see this this outline outside of or inside of the canvas, and this is our mesh 3D, and we can move it around, rotate. Right now it's just a sphere, so it's kind of like hard to really know what's going on, but we are in 3D. In fact, we can go ahead and enable the grid or the floor or the ground floor for ZBrush. So to do that, we can go to the Draw palette. And this Draw palette is very, very essential. It deals with some of the core things in ZBrush, especially it's kind of like the driving palette for how things look in ZBrush. We're going to get to some of these things later on. I just want to show you where it is, but it's not essential. You don't have to do it. That's why I didn't put it in this UI. But if you click and drag to this section where we have this floor, I'm just going to click on that to enable it. And that's the floor, this green looking floor. If you don't like the color green, you can go ahead and change the fill mode, which is just this slider, to 0, or you can make it really, really strong to 3. I prefer to just have it very, very fainted or very subtly there at 0, and then you can change the ground size and all those sort of things. But for now, I think just having the floor on and the fill mode to 0 is enough, at least to see where we are, so we can navigate around our C-sphere. All right, excellent. Now, the last thing that I'm going to mention before we move on to the next video and actually start doing stuff is actually another element that I added to the UI. So this one right here, it's called Activate Symmetry. So this switch right here, this one lives in the transform palette, just in case you want to find it. But since you loaded this UI, you will be able to access it from here. So the Activate Symmetry, what allows you to do is to work in, let's say if this is the center line, it allows you to work in negative X and positive X on both sides at the same time. So the reason I want to mention this before we move into the next one is because since we open and since we set up the project with the grid and everything, you'll notice this line. Hopefully you can see it. This line, this red line, and you can also see, actually, let me just clear this out. I'm going to do it with the proper color. So this line here, I just highlight it, and the blue line as well. There's a blue line in here, right? So this one is telling you that the Z-axis is pointing towards you or towards the camera, that the red axis is pointing this way, and right now we cannot see it, but because of the mesh, but there is another one inside that we cannot see, which is pointing upwards, that represents the Y. Okay, and this is kind of like an important thing to have in mind, especially with what I just mentioned about the symmetry or the Activate Symmetry, because ZBrush is going to, by default, take whatever is on this side of the x-axis, and is going to do it at the same time on the positive side of the x, right? All right. So the last thing I want you to do, now that we have our UI, we have our document in 3D, and we have our ZSphere, is to save this as our first tool of the project. So now that you know how to save tools, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on Save As in the tool palette, and I'm going to go ahead and call this Ultimate ZBrush Guide _ Armature. And I'm going to give it another underscore and write 01. So this 01 indicates that is the first file. And this is a way that I would recommend you do it as well. You can save progressively. So if you do this module or this lesson today and you want to continue working tomorrow, then you know where you left off and is the latest number or the latest file that you save. So I'm going to save it as, like I said, Armature 01. And you'll see that the type of file is a ZTool or a .ctl, right? So that indicates that is a tool, right? Which is currently just a ZSphere and we don't have anything else, but this is enough to get us started. So basically next time that you want to work on a different character, let's say that you completed this entire course and you want to do another character, you can use something like this again to get started in the same point or in the same way that you did with this course. So let's go ahead and actually save it, click save. And we have just one more thing in order to finalize the setup of the project, which is importing the reference image or the concept image for the creature. So in order to do that, we're going to use the texture palette that deals with images and textures and that sort of thing. And I want to introduce you to a new tool in ZBrush or a new feature in ZBrush called the Spotlight. The Spotlight is essentially a way to manipulate images and deal with images all within ZBrush. But for now, we're going to use it as a way to load our reference images. So you see here at the top, we have these three buttons: Load Spotlight, Save Spotlight, and Lightbox Spotlight. So there is a folder dedicated to, let's say if you're working on a project and have your multiple images, you can save all of the images within a Spotlight file. And next time that you want to work on that project, you can load it up from the Lightbox. So I have already prepared the image for you. So you can go ahead and load a Spotlight. So if I click Load Spotlight, you can see in the resource files for this lesson, we have this UCG_creature_sketch_spotlight. You can just double click that and it will load this spotlight. Now I'm going to show you how to do it manually just because that is obviously more useful, but I just wanted to know that is there and you can just load it. All right, so in order to import an image or a texture, we need to first add it to ZBrush before we can obviously do anything with it. So here in the import button, I'm going to click import. And in the files provided, you will see two different sketches. They're essentially the same thing, but one is black and white and it has transparent background. The other one is greenish or a green color and it has a black background. So I'm going to import the green one with the black background just because I want to show you how ZBrush deals with transparency. So I'm going to click on that and click open. And there you go. Here is the image, and as soon as I put it into ZBrush, you'll see it's almost by default there is no background, or the background is transparent, and that's how ZBrush deals with transparent. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. Right now I'm just hovering over it. I'm going to click on the texture that I just loaded, and now it becomes my active texture. You'll see it's very similar to the concept. Just want to point this out. It's very similar to the concept of what is selected and what's not as the tool. So the big thumbnail is whatever we have selected, right? And then we have sort of like these half-size squares for other tools that we selected beforehand, but it's not the current one. All right, so I'm going to clear this out. So now that I have this one, or this texture selected, I'm going to click on this button here. I'm going to hover over and, hovering over any tool in ZBrush is going to display the name, the full name of the button. So I'm going to just point out where that is. Right? So this button that I'm hovering over, it says add to spotlight. So that's what I want to do. I want to add this selected image to the spotlight. So I'm going to click. So as soon as I do that, you'll see ZBrush gives me this. So the image appears here on the left-hand side of the screen, and we have this very weird and intricate set of tools in a radial menu. And this is actually the spotlight. This menu here, or this tool, is the spotlight. And like I said, it's very, very powerful, but we're going to deal with one thing at a time. So for now, I just want to show you how you can deal with these images inside ZBrush. So the way that this works, you'll see this tool has a center point here. So if I hover over this and click in the middle, we can just reset the pivot of this image, and then I can click anywhere outside of this between. Let me just actually draw something in here so that is easy. So here in the center, you can click inside this and move the pivot of the spotlight. And then you can also click anywhere in this area, right? So anything in this area between the center and the actual tools or the buttons, and that is just to move the image or move the spotlight that is, or image associated with the spotlight. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to click anywhere here outside, and that allows me to reposition the image. And all I want to do is have this image somewhere, maybe somewhere here around the corner, as a reference for my sketch. So of course this is too big, but this is why the spotlight is so useful, because it allows you to deal with images all within ZBrush. So the way that this works, let me actually move the the tool in here, and I just want to point a few of the options that we have in here. So the first one, this one, is very simple to understand. It's just a rotate. It allows you to rotate the image. This one is scale. Scale, sorry about the writing. I'm going to avoid this one, and I'm going to probably avoid this one as well. And this one is for opacity. Right? Right now, I don't know exactly what's the value of the opacity, but that's pretty much it. The other ones, I'm going to avoid all of these ones. We don't need any of that. Maybe this one is important in case that you load more than one or something that you didn't want to load. You can just select the image. Right now it's selected, indicated by this yellow outline, and you click here to delete. And this is just going to delete it from the spotlight, not from the texture. So you can go back to your texture palette and add it to the spotlight again, and that's how you deal with it. Now, none of these ones are going to be, we're not going to deal with any of those at the moment. These ones give you the option to manipulate the saturation, the color, the intensity of the image, and that sort of thing. These ones right here. This one allows you to clone or parts of the image or the entire image, but we're not going to look into that either. Actually, we're not going to look into any of these. I just want to show you that they're in there. This one allows you to reset. If you do a mistake, or if you deleted part of the image or paint it over, you can just click on this one and drag to reset. And this one right here is kind of like a liquify. All right. So the ways that all of these ones work, I'm going to show you. It works by clicking and dragging. So if I want to scale the image, right now my pivot is here. So I go to this one, click, right, and drag, and it's just gonna scale, right? So I can just reposition the pivot maybe from the center, and you'll have these little dots that will snap or to the corners, and then scale it, reposition, that sort of thing. Don't worry too much about it. I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to what this is. Again, you can, for example, click on opacity. Let's just hover over this and point it on top of the mesh that we have in here. And here, the opacity, I can click and drag, and you'll see just changing the opacity. If you want to sort of do a perfect match between the concept and whatever you're doing, this is one way to do it. I'm going to leave it at 100%. And I'm going to set it around here, maybe a little bit bigger than that is fine. But again, don't worry too much about these tools in Spotlight. I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to how to deal with images in ZBrush. You can just load it and simply play with the rotation, the resize, and also the opacity. In fact, you can just load something that if it is flipped, you can use any of these tools to flip the image, right? So like I said, this is just a way to manipulate images within ZBrush very, very easily. We're going to have a look at this later on in the course. But for now, we just need to import the image and place it in an area that is going to be convenient to use it as reference. Now, in order to remove this or get out of this spotlight mode, we can go back to texture and we can click in this switch, which is on and off spotlight. And this switch allows you to bring back the sketch reference at any point. So the shortcut for that is Shift Z, and that basically brings the sketch back on. But as you can see, the shortcut Shift Z, as well as the button here on and off, it only turns on or off the spotlight. It doesn't allow you to edit. So the way that you edit the spotlight is with just the letter Z. So you have to make sure that you have the whatever image you have in the spotlight available, and then press the letter Z. Okay, so the letter Z allows you to go into the edit spotlight. And then if I press Z again, I am back into this mode. So I'm going to go ahead and load the one that I have already arranged, which is pretty much what we just did manually. Click on that, and you'll see it just remembers the placement of the image and everything that we did. All right, now just to wrap up this video, let me just mention a couple things. The first one is that basically when we have an image with Spotlight, ZBrush is having, here is our 3D scene with our Z-sphere, right? And then we have, and this is like 3D, right? So 3D. And then ZBrush has this image, sort of like in a floating 2D version here, or 2D space. All right. So this is important to know this because some of the brushes won't be able to react to the 3D if the 2D sort of like bounding box or this 2D area is overlapping it. Okay. And I'm going to show you just how to tweak that. It's very simple, but it's important to understand. And I'm going to go back to this concept and tell you all about it once we actually are dealing with it. But for now, I just want to mention that this is what is happening. There's a 2D image sort of like on top of our 3D object. So sometimes you won't be able to, if you have the spotlight on, you won't be able to deal or sculpt or do things in the 3D space. So just to fix that, and again, it's something that I'm going to come back later on, but it's good to know from the start. So I'm going to click on the brush palette, and right now it's not going to work because I actually don't have any brush selected. We have, our brush is currently our Z-sphere, but if I go to the brush palette, click on samples, there is this button called Spotlight Projection, right? And it's currently on. This is the one that we're going to have to turn off if we want to actually sculpt while we have an image in here. Don't worry, again, this is I'm just trying to give you an overview of that. We're going to get into more details and I will explain that once we get to it. But again, for now, as long as you are aware of how to deal with these images with the spotlight, very basic, just adding and tweaking the shape and the size and rotation and all that, we are good to go. Or you can just go to texture, load the spotlight, and I have already saved it as it is. And I think we are finally ready to move on. This is going to be our project. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention before wrapping up is that a spotlight is not going to be saved with the tool, but it's going to be saved with the file. So if you remember one of the first videos when I explained the difference between saving as file, document, tool, and all that, this is going back to that concept, right? So if you want to save the entire tool as well as your spotlight, your UI, everything, just save as file, right? But because we already saved as a tool, it's going to be like the next time that we open up the tool that we saved, is just going to be this tool in here, and there's not going to be any spotlight. So if you want to save the spotlight as well, my recommendation would be to also go to the texture palette and click Save Spotlight. You don't have to do it. It's not a mandatory thing, but just wanted to give you as many tools as I can. So Save Spotlight will actually save the location and the arrangement that you did with this image. And if you have multiple images, that's what is going to be saved. Also, you might notice that some of the tools and some of the switches that we use are not in the custom UI. And those are in the texture palette, right? These ones right here, I'm going to use a different color. So we have the spotlight on and off, and then we have the add to spotlight, and of course the ones that we use as well to load, save, and import images. Now, I didn't put these ones in our custom UI because this is something that I believe is better to know where they are in terms of the palette. And like I said, the texture palette deals with anything that has to do with images, importing images and textures. So all you need to remember is that if you want to import an image, deal with anything that is a texture, just go to the texture palette and it will be there. And also because these buttons here, or these switches, is better to know the shortcut. Like I mentioned, Shift Z and Z to edit and manipulate the spotlight. So that's why I didn't put it in the UI, just to start forcing you to learn some of the shortcuts so that you can work a little bit faster. All right, so I'm going to leave this video here. I know that this is a rather long video just to set up a project, but I just wanted to mention some of the basics and some important things that we don't have to mention again later on. So as long as you know these basics that I've been just showing you in the previous module and in this video, we are good to go. The next video, I promise, we're going to start doing the practical stuff and really doing some cool stuff. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.